Well, thanks everybody for being here. We're joined by two really wonderful panelists who have a lot to say, I think, about the film. So we've got Diana Kushner and Charlotte Uwimpuhwe. I didn't say that right. Tell me how to say your name.
Charlotte Uwimpuhwe.
Uwimpuhwe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The meaning, so it means that the one who has compassion.
The one who has compassion?
Yes. That's a meaning.
I love that. Thank you. So before we introduce them, I just wanted to take a few minutes to explain why we're organizing this event and why we chose this film. And it might seem maybe a little bit outside of our wheelhouse, but I do think it's really important to recognize that it's related to our mission and our vision. And Sammy, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Would you mind muting while you're translating for Charlotte? And then when we go into the discussion, we can unmute you and then we can all listen together. Does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's okay. Good. That will be okay.
All right. One of the things I was going to say is this is our first time doing an event with translation. And so we're learning and figuring out how to do that. And I think it might be a little bit awkward. So I just want to thank you for your patience, everybody. And I think we're really lucky and grateful to have Charlotte with us and able to share with us. Okay. So our mission, as everybody here, I'm pretty sure knows at this point, is to improve the livelihoods of local farmers, increase food security for our most vulnerable residents, and get everyone engaged in strengthening the food system by eliminating on-farm food waste in Rhode Island. And our vision is strong and connected communities where farmers are honored, valued, and compensated for their contributions. Neighbors get their hands dirty and have fun helping each other, and everyone enjoys an abundance of fresh, healthy food. And we do this by gleaning. Everybody here, I think, has participated in that in one way or another at some point. But our values go a little bit deeper than that. And Derek and Diana actually were part of the group of folks who we consulted when we were developing these values. And we had sort of a group process to go into some of those. And I think the values that speak specifically to this event are the one that states that because we know our future is at stake, we offer solutions to the climate crisis by reducing the emergency food system's reliance on fossil fuel intensive food and making our local food system more resilient to shocks. And so obviously that's related to this film, The Ants and the Grasshopper, because it is so much about climate change and the impact that climate change is having on agriculture, both in the United States and around the world, specifically in Africa. And the next value that this is related to is that we honor the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. So we stand against systemic inequality and stand up for food justice, food sovereignty, and the rights of all people to self-determination. And we can see that climate change is impacting people's ability to determine their own livelihoods and their own ways of being able to be in the world. It's harming people, and that impacts food sovereignty, and it impacts people's ability to sustain themselves with the land. And that's something that we really value and think is really important and we want to stand up for. And then third is because we can always do better. We're continuously striving to learn from and be accountable to our partners in our community. And Charlotte and Diana, as farmers that we work with, are members of our community that we have a lot of respect for and a lot of commitment to serving in our work. And we want to make sure that we're lifting up and honoring the work that you guys are doing and your perspectives as it relates to these larger issues, because we're not just out there picking vegetables, we're trying to make a difference in a very big, complex food system that is, has a lot of contradictions and a lot of challenges, but that we're doing our best to help. And we want to make sure people know that there's more to it than just the harvesting that we do. So that's why we're all here. And Now I'm going to introduce our panel. So I also wanted to remind you that if you haven't already, you can help support our panelists this evening and the cost of screening the film by going and donating to on our website. And Shannon's going to put that link in the chat so everyone can access it, and then we'll get started. So we've got Diana Kushner from Arcadian Fields. I'm pretty sure all the folks who are Hope's Harvest adjacent here have met Diana. She is a farmer at Arcadian Fields Farm, which is a certified organic farm that began production in 1998 and is run by Diana and her husband, Stephen. They pride themselves on developing simple systems of agriculture that make things easy for pickers and farmers while also being minimally degrading to their environment. And if you've been to Diana's farm, know that it is one of the most beautiful farms that has ever graced the earth. And it's always a pleasure to go out there, hidden in the woods, this magical little piece of farmland that we all love. And then Charlotte Uwimpuhwe of Shewatuck Incubator Farm was an early entrepreneur in residence beginning in 2019 at the Shewatuck Incubator Farm in Exeter. She is a Rwandan refugee living in Providence and is an experienced grower of both African and native New England vegetables and herbs, operating her own enterprise. And she sells at multiple farmers markets to other farmers and to her neighbors and friends. And Diana has been partnering with Hope's Harvest since 2018, our first year, and Charlotte started contracting with Hope's Harvest last year. So we're going into our second growing season working with Charlotte. So yeah, that's where we're going to start. And then Shannon has drafted some incredible discussion questions to get us going. And Shannon, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, as we dive into our discussion questions, I just want to remind everyone to stay on mute. And then at the end, if you have any questions, please feel free to shove them in the chat or raise your hand on Zoom and you can ask them to any of our panelists here. And we also just wanted to note that this is our first experience with translating live, and so Sammy, our friend, is helping translate with Charlotte, so that is who is also featured with us today. So Sammy, thank you very much for helping out.
When Shannon was emailing Sammy about this, she's like, he has a French email address, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Sammy speaks 7 languages. And
I speak French too.
Yeah, I figured.
Everything comes in my mind in French because the French is in my I did all my education so in French.
Yeah,
but I speak 7 languages and some Spanish.
So if anyone needs anything translated into French during this event, please let Sammy know. Thank you so much for being here with us. So the first question I'm going to ask is, Charlotte, for you, the film shows the obvious environmental differences between Malawi and the United States. Can you share with us your experience of farming in Rwanda and what elements of climate change impacted your ability to harvest? And how does it differ from your experience in the US?
Ivyo muri Malawi no muri Amerika. Ikintu wabonye gitandukanye guhinga mu Rwanda no guhinga ngaha n'ingene ibi byo guhinduka kw'imyanya ubona ingene byagize intutseye ingene ubitandukanya muri Afrika na
muri Malawi. Twebwe mu Rwanda ukurikije dufite season 2 kandi zose tuzihingamo kuko ntabwo ubundi zikunze kuba mbi cyane.
So what is different is that in Rwanda we have 2 seasons.
Ni igihe cy'imvura n'igihe cy'izuba, ariko izuba ntiriba ryinshi.
Dry season and the rainy seasons, and with a balance with each season.
Ariko izo season zombi tuzihingamo twebwe, nta gihe tudahinga.
And so we do the farmer during the 2 seasons. It may be rainy season, dry season, so we keep doing our farm.
Aho bijya bigorana ni rimwe na rimwe nk'iyi imvura yaguye ikaba nyinshi nibwo imyaka ipfa ntiyere.
Sometimes so the season or the climate can impact on on the farm when you have heavy rain that can destroy the crops, or when it's too dry and you don't have. Now that's how things can change.
ariko ntabwo bikunze kuba ubu ndabyumva ko biri ariko mu gihe narindi mu myaka yashize ntabwo twebwe byabagaho byakunze kubaho.
This doesn't happen frequently, but and also when I was in Rwanda, so we didn't talk more about the climate change. It was like a normal time that sometime, some years, this can happen, but people didn't consider that it was like a big deal.
Muri Malawi ho nabonye ari ikibazo kitoroshye bo baragowe si ukubeshya.
But I found out that in Malawi, it's tough because it seems that the dry season is more than the rainy season.
Gusa uretse ko n'ubundi bihugu bya Afurika tuba dufite ikibazo cy'ibiryo, ibiryo duhinga ntabwo biduhaza.
So another issue is that in most of our countries in Africa, what we make in our farm is not enough to supply all the need of the population.
Yeah, bivuga ngo nubwo hano tugira igihe gitoya cyo guhinga bitewe na season ya hano, ariko turahinga tukabona ibiryo byinshi yo nanga bitagenze nabi ngo tugire izuba cyangwa nk'imvura igwe nyinshi ko nanga hari ubwo igihe imyaka yacu igipfa.
Yeah, and what's the difference here? We have a short period to do our farm, but and they get more. We have more products, yeah, or crops than what exactly short time that we have. But sometimes also, so the climate may impact our work because so the season can change, and this can affect also what we are doing here.
Ibyo dusarura ariko ntago bijya bikabye cyane, ariko nabo barabibona ko hari igihe bibaho tukagira izuba imyaka yacu ntiyere neza cyangwa imvura nabwo iyo yabaye nyinshi bimwe bigapfa.
So we experience also here when the harvest can be impacted when so it's too sunny, or if we have rain, so enough rain, or also the cold can also impact what we are doing here.
Yeah, noneho nkatswe mu Rwanda rero ku bintu by'ibiryo abaturage muri rusange, muri muturage ubundi abenshi bo mu biturage bitari kuvuga ngo ababa nko muri capital bose barahinga bagahinga ibyo kwirisha.
So in Rwanda, normally beside those who are living in the big cities, so they have farm, they have to, and they try to work in the farm to get what they can use to supply on the need of the families.
Ku buryo nuvuga ngo mu Rwanda hari ikintu umuturage wese aba afite ni ibijumba n'ibishyimbo agomba kuba afite ibishyimbo arabihinga bikera akabika, ibijumba agahinga ibyera bisimburanwa n'ibindi, ku buryo nibyo biryo mbega mu gihugu cyacu umuturage mbega byibanze atagomba mbega kubura.
And so there are some basic food that we eat in Rwanda, and everyone normally should have the sweet potatoes and the beans. The beans, because when they have enough, they can dry and they keep in storage because this can be used for a long period. But like the sweet potatoes, so when the time of harvest, they can plant again. So to replace in the continent, and they may have the sweet potatoes all the year.
Yeah, itandukaniro rirerire nabonye ryo muri Malawi no mu gihugu cy'u Rwanda nuko nko muri Malawi nabonye bahinga ibigori, ibishyimbo, nabwo nabonye basa nk'abateza neza. Noneho nkatwe rero nyuma y'ibyo bishyimbo n'ibijumba hari ikintu bita urutoki. Urutoki ruhoraho nirwo umuturage agenda amixingamo bya bishyimbo. Urwo rutoki rumufasha gukuramo iki, batera ibitoki byengwa inzoga biturwagwa. Umuturage akarugurisha, yarugurisha agakuramo nk'udufaranga tugura wa munyu, tugura utundi tuntu. Bivuga ngo nuko ubundi niho naboneye ko bitandukaniye ikizana amafaranga mu Rwanda kenshi ni izo ntoki.
And what I found out also, which is different with what I saw in Malawi. In Malawi, it seems that they have a small farm, and also where in Rwanda, besides that, we have what here I think they call green banana. But in Rwanda, there's a green banana. They use those bananas so to make the traditional beer. You know, they use so to produce the traditional beer, and they can sell, and they have enough money. So from the traditional beer from the green banana. And everyone knows how to make it. You will see beside the beans or sweet potatoes. So they mix in all those kind of culture to mix with the green bananas, you know, and they have a big field, so for everywhere, and everyone can expect to get more income from the green banana. And we also in Rwanda we have also the coffee.
Nabonye muri Malawi rero rwose ubuhinzi bwabo ikawa ho zihoraho zera rimwe mu mwaka, ariko mu mwero wazo zikunze kwera mu zuba mu kwa karindwi kuri.
And the coffee normally it's the harvest is only once a year during the dry season, and this one also it's another source of income, a very a good income.
Rero niho nabonye ko ubuhinzi bw'iwacu bwo mu Rwanda butandukanye n'ubwo muri Malawi, kubera ko dufite bimwe tubarusha, yaba season yabo muri Malawi nimbi iragoye cyane, hanyuma n'ibyo bahinga bimwe kugira ngo babone amafaranga abonye ari ukuri ibyaho biragoye.
And what I found out in Malawi, it's very tough for them because they don't have a lot of diversity, so where they can have enough income. While in Rwanda, you see like a green banana, coffee, those are the very source of income when the farmers can receive more money than even the beans. There are some people can make, so the big farmer, and get the huge kind that they can sell, and they get also to be a source of income.
Can I ask, sorry to interrupt, can I ask another question? Because it is so fascinating to hear about all these different components of farming where you were. How does that feel different from farming here? Like, do you have, is it easier? Is it harder? Does it feel like, what is the, I'm sure it's probably just different, but.
Okay, mubwire ko guhinga ahangaha biroroshye kurusha mu Rwanda. Mu Rwanda duhingisha, dufata icyo bita isuka, tugahingisha amaboko yacu.
Here is very easy than in Rwanda. In Rwanda they use the hoe and using the hand, you know. So you have to use your hands, and you know, while here, you know, it's very easy. There are no tractors, so all those kind of machine, the equipment, that modern equipment that you use for farming. In Rwanda, we don't have that. Yeah.
Icyo tudakora nyine ni ukuvomera imyaka yacu kubera ibihe, ntabwo twebwe tuvomera imyaka mu Rwanda.
So what it is here, you know, what's making the difference? So there are many crops are made during the rainy season. They don't need to pour water on the plants, you know, everywhere. While here, you need so to pour water on, to spare water on the plants. That's makes a difference. So here is very easy. It's very easy, and they're bringing also more products, more harvest than what we have in Rwanda.
Nice. Thank you so much. So Shannon's going to ask Diana the next question.
Sorry, I was muted, but thank you so much for sharing that, Charlotte. That was so interesting to hear. So a little background about Diana before I ask her this question. She is a documentarian, and her documentary, Beneath the Polar Sun, is going to get thrown into the chat right now, so you guys can look it up. But it follows Diana on an expedition kayaking through where there should be polar ice caps. So she is a climate change documentarian. So going off of that, can you share some of your experience in your work with that documentary, and then how you tie that into your work on your farm?
Thanks, Shannon, for that. And thank you, Charlotte, for telling us more about farming in Rwanda and reminding me how easy it is to be a farmer here. So I've been a farmer pretty much, since I was around 20 years old, maybe. And I didn't set out to be a farmer. When I was young, I originally thought I'd be an oceanographer and study the oceans. And at that point, I started learning a lot about the chemicals that a lot of the farmers were using and how they were really poisoning, the rivers and ocean and whatnot. So I got this idea, like, I'm just going to learn about farming, and then I'll be able to teach people not to use those chemicals. But it was not so simple. I don't really even feel now, after farming for 30 some years, that I really understand how to do it. And what is a really good way. Like, we can see ways that seem bad and we can see ways that seem good, but is everything what we seem or what we see? So anyways, at some point I kind of maybe went back full circle to what I really wanted to do originally. And when I was young, I didn't know about climate change. I knew about chemical pollution and stuff like that. But, as I started farming, or continued farming, I started to see that the climate has really been changing in that short amount of time that, I've been farming. I've been here in Rhode Island on this one piece of land for 22, maybe 24 years now. And the changes are really dramatic. So I went north with my husband, who's a Canadian documentarian, and we made this film about climate, about I'm really slow here today, but we made a film about the far north, which everyone thinks of as being this really far place away. And I think a lot of people here watching tonight have actually already seen this film, but for those that haven't, is it okay if I just give a quick explanation? Okay, so what I learned is at the North Pole, there's this giant ocean called the Arctic Ocean, and it's covered in white ice. And I never understood what that white ice had to do with me living here or anyone. I thought the ice melts and it affects the polar bears, it affects the people who live up there. But what I learned is that ice is white and it reflects sunlight. So when the sun hits the ice, almost all the energy goes back to space. But when the ice is gone, when it turns into dark ocean, the ocean starts absorbing that heat. So it turns out and we always talk about, it's a hot day. What t-shirt do you want to wear? A white t-shirt or a black t-shirt? And we think of the Arctic Ocean as this white t-shirt for the planet. It helps keep the planet cool. So anyways, I took a little break from farming to go make this film about how Arctic sea ice affects us all, and that we should all care about it.
Thank you so much, Diana. It's an amazing film. I highly recommend everybody take a look at it. Diana, as a follow-up, because you're so well acquainted with climate science and this conversation, when you were watching the Ants and the Grasshopper, how did it feel to see other American farmers averse to acknowledging climate change? What was that like for you as somebody who's both farming and very connected to the world of climate change dialogue and discussion?
I think anytime you see someone who's averse to climate change, it's really sad. But I don't think that, how do I phrase this? I think that a lot of farmers know that the climate is changing, but they don't like the language that's around it. And I'd like to think that if we're going to make progress, if we're going to solve these problems of addressing climate change, maybe part of the responsibility of people like me and other activists is to speak to people in ways that are going to engage them. And one thing I noticed in the film was that some of the farmers felt like they were being blamed for climate change. And that got me kind of sad, because I think that at least in America, this, super wealthy nation, so many of us are to blame for climate change. Like if it's the farmers who are farming in a certain way, if they're being blamed, well, who are the people who are buying their products? And why can't we maybe pay them more so that they can farm better? Or why isn't there better research, so that they can farm better? So I feel like, yeah, it was really hard to watch that. But I feel like that we shouldn't be blaming the farmers. We should find out how we can talk to them, and so that they can change.
Thanks, Diana.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that that's a really, it maybe shouldn't be such a difficult conversation to have, but sometimes it is, and you don't want to put blame on people when it's such an important topic that shouldn't be just shushed away because you don't want to deal with the blame or the guilt or anything that comes along with it. But I thought in the film it was really crazy to watch. People just be so adverse to acknowledging it in front of, Anita sharing her experiences, and it's difficult to watch that. But thank you for sharing, Diane. So my next question is for Charlotte. I know that you kind of touched upon this earlier in your first response, but I just want to pose the question again if you have anything new to share here. But was climate change something that was being spoken about in Rwanda? Or if you know now if that's something being spoken about, and any other food access work that's being done in the communities. So I know that you briefly touched upon that earlier as well, but if you had any other specifics to share.
Okay.
yabajije
niko mu Rwanda wigeze kumva yuko bavuga ivyerekeye ivyo byo guhinduka kw'ibihe mu Rwanda
ubu njyewe
n'ingene yuko
igihe
abantu
nari nkiriyo kubera ko mperukayo muri 2009 byari bitaratangira gukabya, ariko ubu rwose abantu bariyo barataka.
So when I was there, because I left Rwanda in 2009, so people were not talking about the climate change. But for now, so the family, friends, and those relatives who are there, they are complaining, they can report, and it seems that even the government is talking more about climate change.
Ubu mu Rwanda ni ukuvuga ngo kubera ko biriya bihugu bya Afurika ni ibikene rwose, nko mu gihugu cy'u Rwanda hari inzara ikomeye ku buryo hariho n'umuturage ushobora kumara iminsi ibiri atarabona icyo kurya.
So the access on food, as you ask, there is a big issue in Rwanda. I'm informed that some people, some families, they don't have access to the food. They may spend 1-2 days without enough food to eat because of this impact of the climate change.
Nyine nk'uko nabivuze mbere, ko buri muturage wese yihingiraga twa tujumba akaba afite twa dushyimbo, ubu ntabwo bikera nyine.
So in the time they used to have like sweet potatoes, beans enough, but for now they can have big farm, but and the results they harvest it's too small. They cannot not have enough for what they need.
Ihinduka ry'ibihe rero ririmo.
This climate change is impacting so everywhere in the world, because Rwanda is also knows about this climate change.
Not
only in Rwanda, but the other countries like Burundi, those are countries. And you can check even like Kenya on the corner of Africa, Somalia, and so on, Ethiopia. So everyone know about the climate change, which is impacting so the family. It seems that it's a question which is now which taking all the world. So everyone should be concerned about that.
Thank you so much. That is absolutely true. So in the film, we're shown very different scales of farms, spanning from large commercial agriculture to small local community farming. In Rhode Island and in New England, we actually have both of those and all kinds of things in between. And although it's portrayed in the film that the large farmers don't factor climate crisis into the way that they operate, how do we see our local farms? How do you as farmers see our local farms, big and small, taking steps towards lowering their environmental impact? What are we doing well, and what could we be doing better here in Rhode Island or here in New England? And I'll put that to Diana first, and then maybe Charlotte, you can answer after that.
That's a big question, Ava. And
we're going to answer it right now. And we're going to solve all of the problems of New England agriculture. And that's what we're here to do today. I'm just kidding.
I don't know the answer to that question at all. What I do know is that a lot of people are trying a lot of different things. I know NOFA Rhode Island is having a conference next weekend on regenerative agriculture. And I think the word regenerative agriculture is interesting because there actually isn't a set definition of that word. So lots of people can have lots of different ideas as to what it's about. And so just sort of to backtrack, I think it's a lot of the smaller farmers that might be interested in this, but I also think that you don't want to confuse the size of a farm with how environmental it is, because there's a lot of really big farms that have beautiful economies of scale and probably use less inputs and less tractors and maybe less trucking, to go to market. So I think about it all the time on my farm. I don't think I do a very good job of being an environmental farmer. Just when I look at, I'm driving all the time. I'm using my tractors all the time. So many people drive to get to my farm. I think it's something to strive for. And again, I think it's a real place where you can get, people from URI and other organizations that can share what other people are doing, and so that we can be better. So yeah, there's some great big farms that are doing some really neat things, like Sodco, for instance. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really good and very nuanced point that I really appreciate. And that's kind of where things get more complicated than they look from the outside. To speak a little bit to Sodco, because that's a farm that we go to very regularly for gleaning. They're thinking a lot about carbon capture and how to use clover in the grass mix that they have to build back organic matter and build nutrients into the soil. And I think that's really neat work. Charlotte, do you have any thoughts about this? Sorry, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
Nasubiremo ikibazo.
So can you repeat the question? I was translating.
Yeah, so the question is, how do you see farming in New England or in Rhode Island addressing climate change with
Ingene ushobora kwitaho
good
ikibazo
practices or
ikibazo.
anything we could be doing better?
ati icyo bashobora gukora cyiza ngaha muri New England kugira ngo bakingire ibintu byo guhinduka kw'ibihe, ni ukuvuga abantu kugira ngo baronke umwimbu neza.
Urabona bakora
icyo bakora ngaha kuri intuze no kuvuga intuze uvuga gira nk'icyo uvuga intuze ndasobanura.
ndavuga ngo sibivuge
Wevuga
nawe
no kuravuga
nawe uvuge nawe ibyo uvuga.
So what it is, it's to encourage people to understand that the climate change, everyone should be involved, should be concerned, and try to fight and to restore, to avoid anything that may impact, may make the climate getting worse, where the farmers will be impacted in what they are doing.
Abahinga imirima minini twebwe biradutunze.
Yeah, because for us who are making the big farmers, so it's we like it. It's that is the source of our income and our access also to the food. It's very important.
Yeah, and one thing that we've heard from some of the farms that we work with is it's getting harder to farm here too because of how erratic and crazy the weather patterns are, that you have drought and then you have lots and lots of rain, you have hurricane force winds, and it makes things more challenging in New England and the US also.
Nga muri Rhode Island no muri New England hariho nk'ibimiyaga ushobora kuza ikagira ira-affect nga muri Rhode Island no mu bindi bintu.
Umwaka ushize nahomye ibintu by'ibihumbi bigera kuri 15 kubera umuyaga waje.
So that's true because I think last year I lost about 15,000 in what because of the wind, the storm. So I lost a lot of things. So I know that's true what you are saying. Yeah, the storm winds so impacted what I was doing in my farm.
Yeah. Nabyo ni ikibazo kitoroshye ariko umuti wacyo harabazawutanga.
So my question, I don't know how exactly the process, what we can do ourselves, so to protect our climate and to fight for this issue. So I don't know really what I can do.
Well, I think to some degree you're doing it because you're keeping land in agriculture, which is better than having it in development. And that makes a huge difference. And a lot of times with gleaning, with food waste, people are talking about preventing food from going into landfills, right? Whereas with farmers, if your food goes to waste, it still gets turned back into the soil. And that's still a positive thing because it's capturing more of that richness in the soil. Although I might be wrong about that because Diana seems like she has a thought.
Well, I have a thought that adds to it. It's about telling stories. Like, I think the film was really powerful because you got to know Anita and her story and you care about what happens to her. And I think as small farmers, if we tell our stories, like when we lose crops, when things don't go right because of climate change, it helps people who aren't farmers understand that they live on a planet and we need a stable climate in order to grow food. And not everyone's aware of that. They think, oh, I don't need nature. I live in a city, but they need nature. They need air because they have to breathe. They need water to drink, and they need a stable climate so that farmers all over the world can grow food. So I think probably to maybe one answer to your question, Charlotte, is when something goes wrong, like tell your customers and get them to think, you know? And just to add to that, that's why I made a film, right? I wanted to tell stories, you know, because telling stories, I think that matters to people.
Yeah, that's a great point, Diana. I think it's so true. And that's why we wanted to sort of highlight this amazing film, because it does such a good job of telling that story and try and bring people's attention to it. And just a reminder for the panelists, we're going to have time for your questions when we've moved through these ones that we developed. But if you want to put questions or anything into the chat, you're welcome to. And I think we're also a small enough group that if you want to just jump in and popcorn, you're welcome to do that too. I think we're going to be able to post this recording up on our website and share it with, you know, everybody that signed up for this event, and everyone else who sort of pays attention to Hope's Harvest and the things that we're doing. But I'd love to hear your all thoughts. And Shannon's got yet another super relaxed question that she's gonna follow up with. A little high stakes, but I think we can go there.
This is a deep question. I'm going to turn this a little bit away from climate change talk and a little bit onto gender, because gender plays such a large role in the documentary. We hear about Anita's marriage and Malawi culture, where women are assigned the majority of the daily tasks that are being done. And Anita sparked such monumental change by convincing her husband that more can be achieved by working together. And slowly she starts to see more men take part in their community and working together. And it just so happens that we have a fantastic panel of women leaders who are just incredible. We have an executive director of Rhode Island's first gleaning organization. We have an entrepreneur in residence, farm owner, and a farm owner and documentarian on climate change. So really a perfect panel to pose this question, considering the ties in the documentary. But a large question here, but how does being female influence your work and your leadership skills? And an even bigger one, what are the parallels between male and female power relationships in the movie, and then power relationships between the global North and the global South? So everyone is welcome to share as much as they feel comfortable with that question. It's a very large one, but I felt it was necessary to pose to the group.
Charlotte, do you want to start us off on this one?
She would like to question one by one, because when you bring all those questions, you get lost.
So the first question was just, how does being a female impact your work and your leadership?
Ikintu nze wiyumvira gute uri nk'umuntu w'umugore akazi ukora n'ingene wumva uri umuntu ushobora kuba guhagarikira abandi bantu. Twavuze yuko kazi ungene ugakunda.
Njyewe akazi njyewe nkora k'ubuhinzi ndagakunda. Icyo nicyo cya mbere.
First thing is that I like family.
Ni akazi nkunda kuko kampa guhura n'abantu benshi. Icyo nicyo cya mbere.
It helps me so to meet with many people. That's important.
Kampa kumenya byinshi kurushaho kuko nkigiramo byinshi, nkaho ngereye aha nkurikije imihingire yo muri Afurika iwacu mu Rwanda n'iya hano nungutse byinshi cyane.
It helps me so also to learn more when I compare what I was doing in Rwanda and then now with modern equipment here, I learn more since I came here.
Kandi aka kazi nkabonamo niko nkuraho income ko nta kindi nkora.
This helps me also to have this as a source of income because I'm not working.
Ni akazi nkora nkunze, ni akazi nkundisha abandi kuko singakora njyenyine, hari abo dukorana.
So I'm working with a team, some other people who are working with me.
Ariko bose mbagaragariza kandi nkabereka ko umurimo w'ubuhinzi bamwe barabusuzugura bakwanga ko ariko ubuhinzi ari ikintu cyaguha amafaranga kandi ukarya n'ibiryo uwihingiye utagombye kujya kubishaka mu masoko.
And I encourage people to know that farming is very important, can be a source of income, and also to have a fresh food that as you need without spending money so in the stores.
Yeah, ni ibintu rero ngewe nkora nkunze bisaba kugira ngo ubundi akazi kose ni ukugakunda.
So everything, so it's when you decide to do something, you need to love it. And I love what I'm doing and how also I'm encouraging some other people so to do the farming as I'm doing.
Yeah, kandi biranyura rwose iyo mbona ko hari nk'imiryango nk'ingahe nanjye nigisha dukorana bakaba bashobora kuba batunzwe nuko ari ngewe ubaha ibyo umurimo.
And also it's like I create some kind of job for some families, you know. It's I'm very excited to see I can create something that people can do and receive something from what they are doing. It's a good an encouragement for me. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, rero biranshimisha kandi nkabyumvamo numva bimpaye ishema ku bwanjye ko numva nkomeye muri make.
It's a proud and I feel to be honored. So to lead other people, that I have people that I can train and they can do the same thing. So I feel very proud to be that. To do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all for this question.
Charlotte, you said everything so well that it's like your love for farming and creating beautiful food and a beautiful place and creating community and a place for people to go, and it's hard work, but you meet a lot of people. Like I agree totally.
Yeah.
So, but as for being a woman farmer, I think there's probably some things that are really great about it and maybe some things that aren't. Like I think maybe what held me back as a farmer is that I grew up in a city, so I didn't know about growing vegetables. And I think if I was a man and that happened to me, like other men wouldn't be like so ready to help. But because I'm a woman, like everyone's like, wow, you're a farmer, I want to help you. So people have been very generous, like, you know, the old time, you know, the old men farmers, they've been really nice to me. And I don't know if they'd be so nice to me if I was a guy. I think they might think, oh, why don't they know that? So yeah, but I want to just get back to the film. And I think one thing I really loved about Anita was how she brought in the men. Like, you know, she's like, oh, you can be helpful, you know, and she was so inclusive, you know, and I like that idea of people coming together as opposed to separating people out. And I thought that was really, really beautiful and an inspiration. I think, you know, maybe for all of us is, you know, to include everyone, you know, and, you know, she saw a problem. She's like, oh, you guys are lazy. You're not helping out. You need to work. And I think it's for us too. You see, you know, if someone else, like, you know, like a guy or woman, we just need to look at them as individuals, but try to bring people together. So that's what I just loved.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to this question around the parallels between the male and female power relationships and the power relationships between the global north and global south, because that was my question and something that I noticed about the film. Felt to me very skillfully done by the filmmakers to sort of set up these parallel themes. And I know in my field, in working in food systems and food security work, it is dramatically more women in this field than men. That was the case in graduate school. That's the case in every organization I've worked for. And I think that is related to feeding people being traditionally seen as caring work, as nurturing work. And making sure people have enough to eat as something that is usually coded as female in our culture. Not that I've never met a man who doesn't want to feed people, like, right? Like everybody's an individual, and I'm blessed to know many wonderful nurturing men in my life also. But I think that we don't value nurturing as much as we could as a society. We don't value care as much as we could. And in the same way, we don't value what we would call women's work as much as we should as a society. And I think that is a lesson that we have to learn here in the global north. That is something that also needs to be learned all over the world, is to really honor caring work and how we care for each other. So I thought that that was a really important point that was made by the film.
Yes, I agree. I also just had a thought bopped in my head, but going off of what Diana said a couple seconds ago, and how Diana had stressed the importance of sharing stories, and how that is like a very good way to get people to see where you're coming from and understand you and care and want to care. And I just think it's interesting that you had said that previously about climate change, but that's also seen in the film, where Anita is sharing her experience with her husband, who's right there next to her every day, but it's still necessary for her to share her experience out loud with him and get him to see her side. And then, you know, as that gradually happens further with more of her friends in her community, and just sharing their experiences, and like getting the men to hop on board and start contributing equally. I just thought it was an interesting parallel with sharing stories and like the strength of that. All right, yes.
So yeah, so next question is, the movie is not just about showing disparities in food access and climate, but also about sparking conversation, right? People talking to each other about these issues. And one of the largest challenges that we face is the mentality of waiting for something big to happen around climate change, rather than these sort of small, gradual changes for people to take action. So other than films like this or conversations like this that we're having right now, what do we think we could do? And this might be a nice opportunity for everybody to share if they want to. How can we as Rhode Islanders help show the impacts of climate change that other countries are facing, that we're facing, to encourage people who aren't being directly affected to want to change more? And Diana, I really heard your point about storytelling and how important it is to speak from your own experience. And I wonder if there are like compelling stories or strategies that we've seen in our own lives that work really well to, as you say, bring people into the conversation.
Should I take a stab at that? That's a terrible expression. I think back to that one speech that John F. Kennedy did, think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I think we're in a different era now. I listened to, Biden last night and, various politicians and people for, the past decade, or actually more than that. And it seems like people are more ready to take action when things are affecting themselves. I think that for us in North America, there's a luxury in being able to think about climate change and wanting to take action on it. Like if you can afford that, then you have the time. But if you're worried about, paying your rent and your kids going to school and, the real necessities, climate change might seem further off. So I just sort of want to always sort of keep that in mind. Is like, for me, I think about it all the time, but it's one, because I'm a farmer, so I see it's affecting my life, and two, I can afford to do that because I don't have other things aren't as pressing for me. But I think climate change is affecting everyone's life. It's just that, so it's like, when you ask the question, how can we do the experiences of people far away, is that what's going to make us want to take action, or is it how these experiences affect ourselves? And for better or worse, I think maybe the focus should be how is climate change affecting you as an individual right now versus people far away. Like I want to watch films like the Ants and the Grasshopper. It teaches me so much. I learned so much about it. But I think that bringing those lessons home, if people watch that movie, it might help them also see how climate change is affecting them here and now. So it's a long-winded answer, and food, it always brings back to food all the time. There's a drought in California, the price of this is going to go up. There's a bug eating coffee beans. We're not going to be able to eat coffee. So if we were, in some ways, it's kind of simple to bring the conversation to food, and everyone can, if they stop to think about it, go, oh, climate change is affecting me. It's just, it's not immediate. It's just one step away.
Yeah, does anyone else want to speak to this? Besides Judy's cat?
Sorry about the cat.
Don't apologize. It's a delight.
The book that I referenced, Catherine Hayhoe's book on saving us, really impacted me because my background is as a scientist, and my family is very conservative and does not believe in climate change. And so the conversations are very difficult. And her point was, what everybody needs to do to help is to talk about it. And the way to talk about it is thinking about common values and what's important to the person that you're speaking with, whether it's, their kids or whatever it happens to be, and to connect. So that's sort of the same, I think, as stories, Diana, is, you connect your life to someone else's story and look at points of intersection of what's important. And I'm not ready to try it with my family, but I thought the book was made in a very important point. And I think of Bill McKibben's famous saying of, what can individuals do? Stop being an individual, right? So come together in community and think about it in that way. So I highly recommend the book. And if anybody feels like they're ready to have those conversations with the hard conversations with family and friends, let me know how it goes.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought one of the lessons that I took away from the film, and some of the conversations that Anita was having in the film, both the successful and unsuccessful ones, is that I think in a lot of cases, the problem is not awareness of climate change, but it's awareness of the possibility of doing something different. So when we look at, Diana's sort of earlier point about, Anita's success slowly of getting, the men in her community to recognize that it was possible for them to do what they had thought of as women's work, it's sort of, opening that possibility. And a lot of the resistance that you saw to a lot of the American farmers that she was talking to, which led to this kind of reaction of this kind of like feeling of guilt or sort of feeling of being guilted, came out of, well, what am I supposed to do? Just like not use tractors? Like what, how are we gonna, right? And so is this sort of the lack of possibility? And so I think this goes back to sort of the earlier point that Ava was making, but that it's like farmers like Charlotte and Diana are showing on a small scale that things can be done in a more mindful way, in a way that's, again, however imperfectly. I know Diana's always sort of dissatisfied with how well we're able to do that. And ultimately, for that to be successful, it does need to be scaled up to larger farms. But I don't know, that's one of the reasons I've been excited to be involved in the ways that I have with Rhode Island farming, is that a lot of these small farmers are showing that things that might have seemed impossible if you thought about them in advance, like showing by doing that there are other ways of doing things. And so I think that's at least as important as sort of spreading the news about the damage, is like showing that it is possible to do something about it.
Thank you. That's really, really lovely to just reflect upon. Charlotte, do you have any thoughts that you want to share with us?
So on what subject I was translating, so what he just said.
In the last one.
And you said I kind of lost the thread too.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was summarizing what the other person.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw you doing an incredible job over there. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we're all like getting super heady right now, which I really appreciate. And it's such a blessing to be able to have these conversations with each other, right? Because we are a we here in this space, and a very rich and complex we that has a lot of different insights. So thank you all for being here and at least practicing having these types of conversations with all of us together. So Catherine asked a really interesting question in the chat, and now's our time for audience questions also. So if you want to put those in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, you can go down to the reactions button, or you can just physically raise your hand, and we can start having you all ask questions if you'd like. Catherine's question was, I'm just going to read this. Catherine, unless you want to read it and say it out loud. No, you don't. Okay. So 60 years ago, Catherine's parents worked in East Africa. As a 12-year-old, she still remembers the amazing terracing on steep hillsides in Uganda that made food production possible while preventing erosion. She wonders if Charlotte can speak to some of the traditional farming practices that might inform resiliency here.
Some, can you repeat? Some, can you, the end, some resilient?
Yeah, some traditional farming practices that could influence sustainable farming here.
Inoze ikintu wobona inoze nk'ikintu cyarimo nko muri Afrika batera ushobora kubona yuko cyoshobora kugira nk'akamaro ngana nyine icyo kintu bagihinze
cyagira akamaro
cyashobora kuzana impinduka cyashobora kuza impinduka
ko bitera hano urutoki rutera aha ibindi byose barabihinga hari ikintu iwacu dufite burya badahinga hano.
No, I don't know. Okay, what she's trying to explain is that there are some kind of plants, you know, which are normally with the climate in Africa, but here it may be impossible. Like he was talking about the green bananas, you know,
n'ikawa
even coffee, you know,
guhinga coffee cyane
the coffee, it's one of,
ni igihingwa cy'abanyarwanda.
yeah, that we found in Rwanda, but here, this one cannot be found because of the climate,
Yeah.
you know.
Igihe nticyatuma hano ibyo bihingwa
Yeah.
n'ibindi duhinga mu Rwanda n'ahangaha turabihinga.
But for some other people, some other vegetables, you know, so the same vegetables that we have in Rwanda, so we can have the same vegetables here, and that is what we have been doing. Eggplant.
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 Eggplant turazihinga.
Like eggplants.
Eggplant hano
You know,
turazihinga.
and now has a lot of diversity, and the many African people, they like eggplant. You know, I think it's like new plant that you have from Africa, and the many people love it.
No, it's interesting you brought up the example of coffee, Charlotte, because I think that some of the ways in which coffee is grown is maybe you just take it for granted, but it's quite unique when you look at it from an outsider's view to see that a plant can grow inside of a forest, supporting things underneath it too. So you have multiple stories of plants growing together in order for each one of them to flourish. And my ignorance on this is huge, so I don't really know what I'm speaking about. But I do think that there are some ways in which people have been growing food for a long, long time in places that are somewhat fragile and have been able to make adaptations that would be very useful to learn about, I think. So that you mentioned coffee brings to mind that example for me. But I understand why you don't want to be using one of those hose.
Yarangije kuvuga.
Yeah.
None n'indi ugiye kuvuga.
All right. Does anyone have anything else on that topic?
Yeah, I just have a really short thing to say. I always think about like in Malawi, they showed like the maize, the corn and the beans and the squash growing together. And I've always thought of that as being an indigenous way from the Americas, like, you know, growing stuff. And so it was really neat to see that same three sisters combination growing in Africa.
Yeah, we do the same thing in Rwanda.
So they do the same thing in Rwanda, like you saw the nuts, the peanuts, they can grow together with the corn, you know, the corn, and so it's a part.
Amasambu ni make land.
So the land, some people they don't have the huge land, you know.
That's right.
It's like a small lot, and then now they try to use so to have all the everything so together because the lot is not too huge, you know.
Niyo mpamvu. That's right. Hano buri kintu bagihinga ukwacyo. Niyo very different nyine no muri Africa.
So here you see every crop or any kind of plant will be says with an appropriate so lot, but in Africa, so you need to put everything to mix everything, but knowing that this can be maybe for 1 month, other one for 2 months, 3 months, and so that is how they try to mix all different plants.
Yeah. Usually ibishyimbo n'ibigori urabivanga ariko kuko ibishyimbo byera mbere bigasiga ibigori noneho ikigori kikazajya kuzamuka igishyimbo cyavuye.
Like beans and the corn, so you can put together because the beans will be ready, will be
2 months.
so 2 months, while so the corn may take about 3 months again, you know, and that is how they put all those plants so together.
All right. Thank you guys for sharing, everyone. That was really great. Ali wrote in a fantastic question. So I'm just going to read it out for everyone. Anita stressed the importance of a partnership and how sharing the work is beneficial for everyone. What partnerships in your life/network are you fighting for or are grateful for?
Can you repeat again? Why are you? Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I will repeat it. It's also written in the chat if that helps. Anita stressed the importance of a partnership and how sharing the work is beneficial for everyone. What partnerships in your life or network are you fighting for or are grateful for?
Inoze niki ubona gikora neza gukora nk'igihe ukora ibintu wenyine canke gukorana n'abandi. Partnership ivyo ubona
icyo ni ikintu icyo bundi kirisubiza ntabwo gukora ibintu wenyine ntacyo ugera ariko gukorana n'abantu mwuka byinshi ubona musadi.
So this the answer is too easy. Is that when you have a partnership working with the other people, it's better than what you may do yourself. You learn more from others, and also you get more experience, and also you share your experience with others. And this is very important.
I'm grateful for partnershiping with Hope's Harvest.
Huh?
I'm
Diana, same to you.
Yeah, I'm grateful to work with Ava and everyone at the team of Hope's Harvest and all the volunteers. Like, that's a really fantastic part of my summer.
Yeah, gukora nabo ntuze nabo bose ntuze kira muntu ivyo akora ntuze iyo ntuze ni vyiza gose.
We love working with you too, Diana, and so grateful to work with Charlotte. Charlotte was amazing last year as a partner as well. Like, drop of the hat, letting us all come out in like 99.9 degree weather to show off your incredible operation was just so wonderful. And we're just so grateful for all the farm partnerships and the volunteers and the supporters and the mentors. Yeah, I think it's really important for us as an organization to know that we're building community with what we do. So thank you all for participating in that and being here with us.
nanjye babwire ko nanejejwe rwose no gukorana nabo ari abazaga gusarura n'iki nta kibazo rwose.
So Charlotte she said that she's very excited to work with you. This is partnership, the support, and to be surrounded by many people in the community. So she's very excited. The support that she received from everyone and the learning, get more experience working in a team. She's very excited with that. She's so thankful to all of you.
And thankful to believe on me.
So, and the trusting her also, trusting her, the trust that to be appreciated. So it makes her so very proud and to keep going on, to do more. It's a kind of motivation.
Awesome. Does anyone else have questions that they want to ask or any thoughts or last reflections before we start to wrap up? Yeah, Philip, go for it.
I would like to say something to the panel and also a few questions that it's been since I had volunteered, and I was wondering, before Hope Harvest, before Farm Fresh, how's our local farmers be able to sustain their so-called financial living? Would they be able, like I know Charlotte, when he's in her own country, she depend other means to support herself besides as a farmer. But when she's here, it seems like she's been doing pretty well. And she had now, including a small team of her community that like now she's a boss and she have a team and she had grow very different kind of produce that supply to her own community and also to the mainstream of people. So now through the Hope Harvest, more of our local residents in Rhode Island can experience a diversification of different crops, of different produce. And in another sense, she also preserve her own heritage and culture as far as food supply. So I think we are heading the right direction. The gleaning part, the food not going to be wasted. The farmers can be subsidized with so-called base income. They will be understand that they at least they are contract with certain amount of money income for their work. So they can plan on maybe in the future expanding or get more people involved in farming. So now the local people can enjoy that. My second part is I know when we go to the farmers market, people be able to spend on their WeChat or on the thing, but you know how a lot of time I look at the price on the farmers market is substantially higher than the normal market would go for. So my question is, how does those people doesn't have a limited income can enjoy more fresh food locally grow? Right? I know we donate a lot to charity, but I'm just talking the basic people, that the daily people that go to shop, instead of going to the big box store like Walmart, Star Market, or Shaw's, and get whatever they're on sale, which they will grow from either California, Florida, or even from Canada or Chile or wherever country they come from. Instead overlooking our local produce, because as a matter of fact, that will be keep the farmers growing in a bigger picture and attract more younger people get into the profession as a farmer.
I think I can address some of that. So when I did farmers market, at one point, I thought I wanted to make a sign. So if I have some heads of lettuce, the sign will say, if you want the farmer to make $15,000 a year, you can pay $1 for this head of lettuce. If you want the farmer to make $25,000 a year, you can pay $250 for this head of lettuce. If you think the farmer should make $40,000 a year, you should, pay whatever for this head of lettuce. I think that the thing with farmers in Rhode Island is that in essence, we're competing with farmers from all over the world who will pay their farm workers money that isn't enough to live on. So I don't think the question should be, what is the price that farmers are paying or charging? Because I think farmers actually need to charge a certain amount of money if they're going to be able to, feed their own family, maybe send their kids to college one day. I think the question is why in this country do people not have enough money to buy food? So I just want to flip that question on its head. Because in some ways it's like, I don't want people blaming the farmer for having to charge what it actually costs to grow that food, because growing food in New England is really expensive. Like I have to pay, property insurance, health insurance, taxes. I mean, all this, business expenses, $400 to be an LLC. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes and goes. It's a little crazy. So yeah, it would be nice if our prices were cheaper than Walmart, but when I did sell at farmers market, I consoled with myself in that actually I think people were getting a better deal because what I had was some of my bunches of, kale or collards, they'd be bigger and maybe more nutritious. So it's a difficult question.
Well, and
to
Philip,
answer.
thank you, Diana, for giving that perspective. And Philip, I just want to recognize that what you have asked highlights the fundamental core challenge that the food system sector, the sustainable food system sector, has been trying to address for literally the last 20 years, right? And you're not wrong that it's a hard nut to crack. It's really complicated and it's really hard. And the reason why you can get really cheap food at Walmart or at different markets is often in large part because of some kind of subsidy. And it's usually, if it's corn or soy, it is a commodity subsidy. If it's vegetables, it's the subsidy of cheap labor, as Diana said, that is made possible by lax labor laws for farm workers. And the secret is not to remove the subsidies entirely from the system. I think the secret and the answer is to subsidize the types of food and businesses that we want to support to sustain us as a culture. And we can do this with a lot of different mechanisms. And there's so many different creative ways that organizations, that businesses have tried to address this challenge. One of them is Farm Fresh Rhode Island has the Bonus Bucks program, which provides an incentive for people to purchase fruits and vegetables at farmers markets. And what that allows for is the farmer to still get paid what the farmer needs to get paid, and for an individual's purchasing power to increase. And that's a demand side subsidy that works for everybody. And I think that finding the types of solutions that work for everybody, where the farmer still gets paid and people still get to eat healthy food, is the most important thing that we can be trying to address in as many creative ways as we possibly can come up with, in the same way that we want to address the climate crisis with as many creative solutions. There's no one solution that's going to solve this. We have to do everything. We have to throw everything we can at it, right? So all the ways that we can figure out to get people healthy food and make sure farmers keep getting paid, and all the ways that we can keep sustaining life on this planet. Let's do it all. Is that helpful, Philip?
Yes. I think it's good that we are working on towards the helping our smaller business or local farmers in order for them to be able to stay in the business and also be financially stable and not being discouraged by the climate changes. Because that's one thing, it takes a long time. We have to deal with much bigger pictures. And I think one of the major challenges, how to deal with these climate changes, how to grow crops with less water, with harder weather, or with colder climate, or when there's flood coming and wash off the crops and they lost everything. So a lot of things that can happen because of climate changes, and they may not have control of it. So now we can find some kind of alternative for them to make it works. Like you say, maybe the bonus dollar that they can have a little bit more cushion on it, save for the rainy days when they have surplus. And the greening actually that helps not get the food being wasted. Because my biggest issue, I feel like people waste so much food. You go to a restaurant, people eat, and half the dish is not done, and then they throw it away. You should never order or you take home whatever left over. I'm pretty sure I know people who work in the public school had the same thing. Kids buy lunch, or they don't have to pay for lunch. They take a bite and they throw it away because it doesn't taste good. So a lot of things that we should start thinking though, what as an individual or as a small community, how we start to change people's looking at food or looking at farming in the future, how our supply will changes.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we have one last question to wrap everything up on a high note, hopefully. And Shannon's going to share that with us.
All right, yes. I'd like to finish with this question. Hopefully it will have us all ending in high spirits, although there have been no easy questions here tonight. But in the film, Anita, to me, radiates hope. She shares her experiences, and so many ignore her pleas for change. And despite this, she still maintains so much faith and hope that inevitably things will change for the better. And so I just wanted to ask everyone, and everyone is welcome to participate in this, but if you would not mind sharing just what continues to bring you hope for our future.
I'll go for that one. I think people like Anita give me hope. It gives me hope that that one young man who is so dismissive of climate change thought about it, and 2 years later, he was really embarrassed about how he had acted towards Anita. It gives me hope that there's organizations like Hope's Harvest out there, and that there's a lot of people trying to make change. I'm not necessarily hopeful, but there's a lot of good people out there trying to do a lot of really good things.
Thanks, Diana. Charlotte, do you want to share something that brings you hope?
ikimpa ibyizigiro ko ibintu bishobora guhinduka ni uko mbona ubwo abantu bamwe batangiye wenda kubishyiraho umutima no kubitekerezaho, biratanga icyizere ko wenda bizagera no kubagira icyo babikoraho kirekire. simbizi ndeba nawe ibyo uvuga sinakora.
So I think that for now, I think that things may change because many people are trying to understand the climate change with the involvement of political leaders all over the world who are talking about the climate change. So I hope that things will change and many people will understand how we need to protect our planet. So, and also for us as farmers, we may keep doing what we are expecting in our project of farming.
tubifashijwemo ubundi aba ni Hope Harvest na Farm Fresh. Waba ni Hope Harvest na Farm Fresh nabo babidufashijemo.
So with your help also, for us who are involved in this program, to see what orientations so you will bring to us, so to keep doing really what we are doing.
Turizeye kuko n'Imana irahari kandi ntiyakemera ko abahinzi abenshi nkatwe tubeshwaho n'uyu murimo w'ubuhinzi, kandi ikindi n'ubundi ni hahandi n'abaturage bakeneye ibyo kurya.
And another thing, so I believe in God, because God knows that we need, so we don't have any other work that we are doing, and the people need the fresh food, and we are there to produce.
Hamwe n'Imana bizakunda n'abayobozi bacu. Nta kindi.
So with our political leaders, if they understand, and then with the help of God, we hope that things will change.
I think we need all the help we can get. So here. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us and for all of your sort of insight and wisdom and perspective. It's just Diana and Charlotte and everyone else on the call really appreciate your contributions to the conversation. I want to thank Shannon so much for all the hard work that she's put into making this event happen. This was her baby and she did a great job. We're so glad to have her on the team. So yeah, thank you to everybody. We want to mention, Diana, if you want to do a quick plug about your film, if folks haven't seen it. I know you said you think most people have already, but
Yeah, and so a quick plug. Our film is where's all my words today? Just like Hope's Harvest showed at the Ants and the Grasshopper for a week, our film is being shown for a week at Brown University, and it ends on Friday night. So if you've seen the film and maybe have friends that you'd like to tell them about, you can, there's a link, I think, in the chat there. And if you haven't seen the film, you can just click on the link. It's free and through Friday night.
it's great. I highly recommend it. It was a really great, really wonderful piece of work. Charlotte, is there anything you'd like to share with us? Anything coming up? What farmers markets you're going to be at? Your CSA? If there's anything that we can do to support you or like give you all of our props and respect in the future, in the near future, the far future?
hari ikindi ubona ushobora kuvuga ukanabona yuko bogufasha kugira ngo mu minsi iri imbere ibintu yuko byogenda neza, hari ikintu ubona wiyumvira
icyo bamfasha
cyo bashobora kugufasha kongereza kugufasha ubona cyo guha ibyizigiro cyane mu byo uriko urakora.
kuri ubu icyo bamfasha ni ukujya bankosora mu byo ngenda ndakiga nkurikije imihingire yacu yo muri Afurika n'iki na hano mu by'ukuri ndakorana nabo ariko bajye icyo nzakosa cyangwa bakabona kidafututse nyine nabo bazanyereke bati gikorwa gutya bakabona ko hari ibyo nkora bidakwiye bazambwira bati bikorwa gutya nabo mbitezeho imfashanyo yabo ikomeye mu mikoranire yanjye nabo.
So what I would like to say is that in my partnership with you, so with my culture from Africa, how I used to use more energy to do something, and now I'm at the beginning, and I would like to improve more, and I will need your help, your advices if I may do something wrong. So I'm ready. I'm very humble to receive, to teach me, so I can improve my menu to do things. So, and this is my hope, and this was I'm expecting from you.
You're doing awesome. We're so grateful. You're a delight and a pleasure every minute of every day. Thank you, Charlotte. That's very, very thoughtful.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So one last little thing, if we're going to post this on our social media and on our website, so we'll send the link out for that. If you want to share it with any friends that you think would appreciate the conversation, feel free to do that. The link for the film, I believe, has stopped being live as of 6 o'clock tonight. So that link won't work anymore. But I'm sure there's other ways that people can watch the Ants and the Grasshopper. I think this was a really rich conversation. We've also got 401 Gives, which is Rhode Island's Day of Giving, coming up on April 1st. And that's a day when all the nonprofits in the state participate for the most part, and sponsored by the United Way. So that's coming up. Keep your eyes open for some links for that throughout the course of the month. And if anybody's interested in helping us fundraise on that Day of Giving, let us know. Up to and including Judy's cat, who I think would probably be a really good face for the campaign if we could get it to stand still.
You may have him.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a really lovely evening. And this was a delight, a real pleasure. Yeah, have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, bye.